Good morning. What is up, peoples? Another day, another level, another journey. Welcome to another morning power talk. I think that's what I'm calling it now, right? It is what it is. So, once again, don't mind the headpiece. Don't mind the head wrap. This is my morning routine. This is how I keep the waves down. What's left of it. Okay, so this morning, I want to tell you a story about 3 years ago. I was a teacher. I taught at an elementary school, and I was a math and science teacher to second graders. And it was probably one of the greatest experiences and privileges I ever had. I taught for some time, taught for a little while until, I kind of grew out of it. But anyway, when you're a teacher that is teaching within a classroom at a public school, I'm not sure how they do it in private schools, but when you're in a public school, there are certain requirements. There are certain ways you have to set up your classroom. In other words, you have to, so for every week there's a lesson plan, if I can remember it clearly. And you had to have the lesson plan pretty much stated on the board, right? There was a methodology to it. There was a whole process as to what you're supposed to do. What this week's theme was about, what this week's word was about, what this week's math problem was about, or what the, what's the word I'm looking for? What the specialty was, right? Because every week there was something that was supposed to be learned. So you would have that on the board, and then every day, daily, you would talk about what chapters of the textbooks you were teaching from, and so on and so forth. And this was so important because if somebody from downtown, if the Board of Education for the county that you're in would come in, they would want to see that. It is actually something that's required for every teacher to have, to the point where it will determine your employment status. Sometimes it really depends. No one's gonna fire you about it, but it was really important to have that on the board, to have that whole thing stated out. And also it was good for the students as well, so that when they come in, they would know what they're going to be learning this week. So I remember, of course, at the time, I wasn't a systems person. It was very hard for me to follow systems, very hard for me to lock into certain things like that because it was so new to me. My first year as a teacher was such a new process because I'm very skilled as a teacher, very skilled. I was given a lot of recognition at the school. The way my classroom management tactics and behavioral tactics were superb. It was a great experience, but I just could not understand getting down the system of the classroom setup. It was very hard for me because I wasn't trained in that necessarily. So my teaching was at an all-time high. I was excelling in that. I was very successful in the teaching aspect of what I was doing. But I had a hard time with setting up the weekly lesson plans, right? Because the students that I dealt with, I had a lot of the special needs students. Yes, it was an ESC school in Florida. So a lot of my students, they maybe would not get some of the processes, some of the things that we were learning in a week. So it would require a little bit of extra time with them. I love those kids, I still miss them to this day. But I remember one time we had people from the Board of Education coming through, and my board, of course, was not up to par. And I remember before they came through, I was struggling so hard to get the weekly lesson plan on the board or somewhere within the classroom that's visible. And I remember there was this one teacher, right? I'll call her Miss Robin for now. Miss Robin was a teacher that was next to me, and she's been teaching for, I believe, 25 years at the time. She's a veteran teacher, She got the thing on lock. She was Miss Robin actually taught middle school science. So she had a whole chemistry lab within her classroom. It was amazing. So anyway, Miss Robin one time saw me in the classroom just struggling. While everybody went home, all the kids went home already, I went back upstairs and, to set up my classroom because I'm about to be evaluated for this whole thing. And Miss Robin came up to me as I stepped outside of my classroom. Maybe she took a glance and saw that my classroom wasn't the way it's supposed to look. And she pulled me aside and she was like, Mr. D, they call me Mr. D. My last name is Philippe, but Mr. D, I like Mr. D better. Informal, right? There was another Mr. It could have called me Mr. P. They could have called me Mr. P, but there was another Mr. P. You know, shout out to Mr. P. Good guy. So they call me Mr. D. All the kids call me Mr. D. Everybody call me Mr. D. So she saw something. She took a glance within my classroom and realized that something wasn't right. So Miss Robin was like, Mr. D, do you need help? She was like, Mr. D, do you need help? And I was like, yeah, I do need help. She was like, what's wrong? I was like, listen, it's been like halfway through the school year, and I have not figured out this whole weekly lesson plan system that we're supposed to have visible in our classroom. I don't know how to do it. And she just started laughing, and she said, I'll help you. So she went in the classroom, in a matter of like 10 minutes, she set up the whole thing for me, okay? It was that easy for her, right? So in 10 minutes, she set up my whole weekly lesson plan, like, okay, what are you guys teaching this week? Okay, here's how you do it. Here's how you find the reference number, because the textbook number has to be up there. The lesson plan number has to be up there. The review has to be up there. What the goal is, the intention of what you're learning this week, what you want the kids to take, should be up there as well. And it was so interesting. So after she set it up like in a speed of light, which took me like an hour to try to figure out, she walked away and went back into her classroom, and she was like, Mr. D, closed mouths don't get fed. She said, Mr. D, closed mouths don't get fed. And I don't know why. At the moment when she said that to me, I mean, it just struck a chord. I never forgot it. It echoed in my heart. And this is something that I learned that's very important about life this morning. This morning's nugget. This morning's power talk, power idea. Something you got to understand is, if you aren't intentional about what you want, you can waste a lot of time. Many of you are just like, because you're living in a mindset of scarcity, you're so afraid of telling yourself the truth. You're so afraid of being honest with yourself and saying, hey, I don't want this. I don't want to be with this person. I don't want to associate myself with these people. I want a different environment. Or you know what? I want to go back to school and finish my degree. Or I want to, take another degree. Maybe you want to go further into your education, because many of you are so afraid of being intentional and speaking out. Many of you are struggling and losing in life. Miss Robin told me something so simplistic. She was like, Mr. D, closed mouths don't get fed. In other words, if you don't say something, if you don't tell somebody something, if you don't ask for help, if you aren't intentional about what you want, what you need, you don't get fed, proverbially fed. So I spent the whole school year, I spent half of the school year trying to prove to myself that, hey, I got this, I'm gonna figure it out, spending hours upon hours trying to do this thing, when really I could have asked Miss Robin, whose classroom was right next to me, and she and I already had a relationship, a very good relationship, and she wouldn't have any problems. It wouldn't have burdened her. I knew it wouldn't have burdened her to help me out, but I kept my mouth shut because I tried to figure it out myself. Closed mouths do not get fed this morning, peoples. Speak up. If you need help, tell someone. If you know this thing isn't working, go get help. Now, in terms of business, right? Excuse me. In terms of business, there is no excuse for somebody, whatever it is, whether it's business or trying to figure something out. Being the fact that it's 2019 and we have this wonderful instrument called Google, no one should not know what to do. No one should not know what the process is to get something. No one should be in the dark. No one should. Because Google, if you Google something right now, and YouTube University is what I call it, right? That's why I learned everything. My wife and I bought a house this year, and I'll tell you this right now. I've been bit with the bug of YouTube, because I thought I was before. I've been on YouTube before, and I've figured out a lot of things before through YouTube and Google. But at the same time, I've become a handyman in a way. Right? My wife and I were getting a toilet bowl, getting new toilet bowls, and went to buy the toilet bowl at Home Depot. bowl at Home Depot. And after I bought the toilet bowl, I was like, okay, so how do I put this in my house? Like, how do I put this in the bathroom? And the guy literally told me, it costs $300. $300 to get a toilet bowl installed in your bathroom. Now, I've never put in a toilet bowl before. I was raised in a house where my father was heavily active with fixing things, so I'm kind of, I kind of have that in my blood. But I'm like, $300 to put in a toilet bowl? I can do a whole lot with that $300, okay? So, especially when you're starting a business, I'm still in startup mode in a way. I'm still very lean in what I'm doing. Funding comes from me, literally. Excuse me. So, I'm like, $300. I went on YouTube and literally watched a video by a young lady, a woman put this in. She was amazing. She did a video. She's a woman handyman. I forgot the name of her page to give her a shout out. But she literally put in the toilet bowl within 20 minutes. I watched the video, like as I was sitting down reading a book or something, and I just kind of watched it on the side. It was 20 minutes. And I'll tell you this right now, within 15 minutes of the video, I pretty much knew how to put it in the toilet bowl. Got the toilet bowl, put the toilet bowl within 20 minutes as well. Put the toilet bowl within 20 minutes as well. Okay? It was that simple because I went out and I sought help. Closed mouths don't get fed, people. If you need help, go get the help. If you know your situation, if you know your circumstance right now, it's not up to par. It's not up to your standards. Be honest about it. We must be honest with ourselves and go out there and get help. If you see that woman, that young lady, or that guy that you're after, and you may be afraid of letting them know that you're attracted to them or you're pursuing them, go out there and pursue them. If there's a job opportunity that you've been afraid to go after it. My wife's an attorney, so in her world, there's a lot of attorneys that, there's a lot of judge seats that are available, but, a lot of attorneys get so afraid because they're like, man, I'm not ready to be a judge yet. Maybe I won't make it. Man, my phone keeps losing service out here. But anyway, my wife's an attorney, and in her world, a lot of attorneys, the desire is to be a judge at some point, or starting your own practice, starting your own firm. So many times there's like positions that are open, that open up to them, but what you'll find in a lot of attorneys that they're afraid. Like a judge seat, several judge seats are open, and many judge seats you don't even have to campaign for. Like if you just put in an application, you become a judge, okay? I found out it was that simple, but some people are so afraid that they don't go after it. But they're not honest with themselves to say that, this is what I really want. Let me go after it. Closed mouths do not get fed, beloved. Closed mouths do not get fed, people. You must be very intentional about what you need, what you want in life. This is why I've written a book called Your Deathbed Confessions, How to Escape Regret and Live a Life of Absolute Purpose. This is why I'm starting, I'll be launching my podcast academy, the Lean Hustle Podcast Academy, which is coming soon, because I was able to create a podcast literally from this whole concept of closed mouths don't get fed, of going out there to learn how to do things and how to figure things out, going out there and getting coaching. I got coaching. John Lee DeMoss was my coach back in 2013 and 14 for podcasting, which got my podcast to the top of the iTunes charts. It was from that. I didn't do it on my own. I learned. Entrepreneurship is an acquired skill. Okay, I've always been a creative, but it's an acquired skill. Okay, business is an acquired skill. It's not something that comes through osmosis. You have to literally work this out. You've got to be surrounded around people who know what they're doing, right? So it's a very simple concept. Closed mouths don't get fed. What do you want? And be honest about it. Come on. What do you want? Say it right now. I'm listening. I can't really hear you, but you know what I mean. I want to do, and it doesn't matter how radical it is. It doesn't matter how radical it is. I want you to say it. I want you to believe it too. Go out there and get what is yours. Stop being afraid. And this is something I have to learn. Even after Miss Robin told me closed mouths don't get fed, I still needed a reminder every so often that Dario, closed mouths don't get fed. Go after it. Pursue it. Be honest with yourself. Be bold. Stand out. Miss Robin told me closed mouths don't get fed. In other words, if you don't say what you want, if you're not honest about where you want to go in life, if you need help, get help. If you need coaching, get coaching. But be honest. What direction are you going? What direction are you going? For how long? It's another morning. It's another year. 2019 is going to be over in a few months. Another year is going to come. Another year is going to pass you by. For how long will you wait until you make a move? For how long will you wait until you make a decision for your life, for your family's life? Where do you guys want to go? No matter how radical it is. I don't care if you're living in a dumpster right now. I don't care if your situation is so bad right now that you can't even see yourself out of it. I want you to be honest with yourself. What do you want? Where do you want to go? So we talked about weaponry yesterday. Today we're talking about intentionality. Being intentional. Being honest. Calling out what you actually want. And going that direction with fierceness. Closed mouths don't get fed.